The scorching July sun beat down mercilessly on the pristine concrete surrounding our community pool, creating shimmering waves of heat that danced across the azure water. It was supposed to be just another peaceful Saturday afternoon at Sunset Hills residential complex where I worked as the head lifeguard and pool coordinator. The gentle splash of children playing Marco Polo mixed with the soft hum of conversation from parents lounging in deck chairs, creating the perfect symphony of summer relaxation. Little did I know that this tranquil scene was about to be shattered by a woman whose name would become synonymous with chaos in our tight-knit community. I had been working at Sunset Hills for 3 years, ever since graduating college with a degree in recreation management. The job was perfect for me. Good pay, great benefits, and the opportunity to work outdoors while ensuring families could enjoy safe, clean recreational facilities. Our community pool was the crown jewel of the complex, featuring a large main pool, a separate kiddie pool with colorful water features, and a spacious deck area with comfortable seating and shade structures. The pool rules were clearly posted, in multiple locations, printed on laminated signs that had weathered many seasons but remained perfectly legible. The rules were simple and reasonable. Pool hours were 6 a.m. to 10 p.m., children under 12 must be accompanied by an adult, no glass containers, no smoking, and most importantly for this story, pool access was exclusively for residents of Sunset Hills and their registered guests. Each resident received pool key cards that were programmed with their apartment number and expiration date. Guest passes could be obtained from the front office with proper identification and a resident's signature. It was a system that had worked flawlessly for years, preventing overcrowding and ensuring that the people who paid for the privilege of living in our community could enjoy the amenities they deserved. That Saturday afternoon, I was conducting my routine safety inspection, checking chemical levels and skimming leaves from the surface, when I noticed a woman I didn't recognize approaching the pool gate. She was probably in her mid-40s with perfectly styled blonde hair that hadn't moved despite the oppressive heat, and she wore designer sunglasses that probably cost more than my monthly car payment. Her bright pink workout outfit looked fresh from the store, complete with matching water bottle and oversized beach bag. Everything about her screamed, "I'm important and accustomed to getting my way." She strode confidently to the gate and tried her key card. The electronic lock beeped twice and flashed red. Access denied. She tried again, this time more forcefully, as if the intensity of her swipe could somehow override the security system. Another double beep, another red flash. I could see her shoulders tense with frustration as she peered through the fence at the inviting pool beyond. "Excuse me!" she called out, her voice carrying across the pool deck with an authority that immediately caught my attention. "Excuse me, lifeguard, I need you to open this gate right now." I set down my skimmer and walked over to the fence, maintaining my professional smile despite the demanding tone in her voice. "Good afternoon. I'm Sarah, the head lifeguard here. I'd be happy to help you. Do you have your resident key card with you?" Her perfectly manicured hand flew to her hip in a gesture of exasperation. "Of course I have a key card, but this stupid gate isn't working. I've been trying for 5 minutes and it keeps rejecting my card. I have a very important appointment with my personal trainer in exactly 30 minutes, and I need to do my pre-workout. Laps first." "I'm sorry you're having trouble," I replied, maintaining my calm demeanor. "Sometimes the cards can get demagnetized or damaged. Can you tell me which apartment you're in? I can look you up in our system and see if there's an issue with your account." The woman's posture shifted slightly, and I caught a brief flicker of something, uncertainty, behind her designer sunglasses. I'm staying with my friend temporarily. She lives in 4B, but she's not here right now, and I don't have her card." My internal alarm bells began ringing softly. In 3 years of working here, I'd dealt with every possible scenario involving pool access, and this conversation was following a familiar pattern. "I understand that can be frustrating," I said carefully. "However, our policy requires that non-residents be accompanied by the resident or have a valid guest pass from the front office. If your friend isn't available, you can get a guest pass by showing ID and having her call the office to authorize it." The transformation was immediate and dramatic. The woman's friendly facade cracked like ice on a hot sidewalk, revealing something much less pleasant underneath. Her voice rose several octaves, carrying across the pool area and causing several families to look up from their activities. Are you kidding me right now? Do you know who I am? I am not going to jump through hoops just to use a pool. My friend pays rent here, which means I should have access to all the same amenities she does. Ma'am, I really do understand your frustration, I began, raising my hands in a calming gesture. But these policies exist for everyone's safety and security. If you'd like, I can call the front office and see if— No! She screamed, her voice now reaching levels that made parents instinctively move closer to their children. I don't want you to call anyone. I want you to open this gate right now. This is discrimination. You're profiling me because of how I look. The accusation hit me like a physical blow. In my 3 years of professional experience, I had never, not once, made a decision based on anything other than clearly stated policies and procedures. I had helped residents of every age, race, and background, and I prided myself on treating everyone with equal respect and courtesy. The fact that this woman was attempting to weaponize such a serious accusation to get her way was both shocking and deeply offensive. Ma'am, I said, my voice remaining steady despite the adrenaline now coursing through my system. This has nothing to do with your appearance. These are standard policies that apply to everyone equally. I've had to ask residents' children, elderly grandparents, and even maintenance workers to follow the same procedures. If you're not a resident and don't have a guest pass, I cannot allow access to the pool area. What happened next would be burned into my memory forever. The woman, who I would later learn was named Karen Mitchell, began screaming at a volume that seemed impossible for a human being to achieve. Her face turned an alarming shade of red that clashed terribly with her pink outfit, and spittle flew from her mouth as she launched into a tirade that would have made a sailor blush. You stupid, power-hungry little girl, I've been coming to pools since before you were born. I know my rights. This is a public accommodation. You can't keep me out. I'll have your job. I'll sue this entire complex. I'll make sure you never work in this town again. The entire pool area had gone silent except for her screaming. Children clung to their parents, several elderly residents looked genuinely frightened, and I could see other pool goers beginning to gather their belongings, their peaceful afternoon effectively ruined. My heart was pounding, but my training kicked in. I needed to de-escalate this situation before it got any worse. Ma'am, I'm going to need you to lower your voice, I said firmly. You're disturbing other residents and their guests. If you continue to be disruptive, I'll have to ask you to leave the property entirely. This seemed to enrage her even further. She began pacing back and forth in front of the gate like a caged animal, gesticulating wildly and continuing her verbal assault. Don't you dare tell me to lower my voice. I'll talk as loud as I want. This is America. I have freedom of speech. You can't silence me. She then began rattling the gate violently, the metal clanging against the posts with enough force that I worried she might actually damage the locking mechanism. Several children in the pool began crying, and I saw parents quickly gathering their little ones and heading for the exit. The peaceful community space that I worked so hard to maintain was being transformed into a scene of chaos and fear. Ma'am, you need to stop shaking the gate and step away from the pool area, I called out, pulling out my radio to contact security. If you continue this behavior, I'll have to call the police. At the mention of police, Karen's demeanor shifted once again. The wild rage was replaced by a cold, calculated anger that was somehow even more unsettling. She stopped shaking the gate and stood perfectly still, staring at me through the fence with an intensity that made my skin crawl. Oh, you want to call the police? She said, her voice now deadly quiet. That's perfect, because I've already called them, and when they get here, they're going to arrest you for discrimination and violation of my civil rights. I hope you enjoyed your little power trip because it's going to cost you everything. My blood ran cold. She had called the police? On what grounds? Everything I had done was completely by the book, following policies that had been in place for years. But I knew that police calls, regardless of their merit, had to be taken seriously and could reflect poorly on both me and the complex if not handled properly. As if summoned by her words, I heard the distant wail of sirens approaching. The sound grew closer and closer until 2 police cruisers pulled into the parking lot, their flashing lights casting red and blue shadows across the pool deck. Several officers emerged. As Officer Martinez listened to Karen's tearful performance, I noticed something peculiar happening at the edge of my vision. Mrs. Chen, an elderly resident from apartment 3A who had been quietly observing the entire spectacle from her poolside chair, was frantically waving her phone in the air. She caught my eye and mouthed the words, "I recorded everything," while pointing to her device. My heart leaped with hope. If she had captured Karen's actual behavior, it could vindicate me completely. But before I could signal to Officer Martinez about the recording, Karen dropped what she clearly believed was her nuclear weapon. "Officers, I need to inform you that I am actually an undercover investigator for the Department of Fair Housing," she announced with theatrical gravity, reaching into her designer bag to pull out what appeared to be an official-looking badge and identification card. "I've been conducting a sting operation to test this facility for discriminatory practices, and I'm afraid this young woman has failed spectacularly." The words hit the humid air like a thunderbolt. Officer Martinez's eyebrows shot up, and his partner, Officer Rodriguez, immediately stepped closer to examine Karen's credentials. I felt my knees go weak. An undercover investigator? Had I somehow unknowingly discriminated against her? Had my adherence to the rules actually been a violation of some law I wasn't aware of? "Ma'am, can you provide more details about this investigation?" Officer Martinez asked, his tone now more formal and serious. Karen's entire demeanor shifted into what she clearly believed was professional authority. "Certainly, officer. I received a complaint 3 weeks ago, alleging that this pool facility was systematically denying access to individuals based on protected characteristics. My investigation today was designed to test whether staff would find pretextual reasons to exclude someone who appeared to be of a certain socioeconomic status." She gestured to her designer outfit and jewelry as if they were evidence exhibits. "As you can see, I deliberately dressed in a way that would signal affluence, and sure enough, this lifeguard immediately began creating barriers and obstacles to my access. She demanded multiple forms of identification, insisted on complicated procedures, and when I questioned her authority, she became hostile and threatening." I stood there in stunned silence, my mind reeling. Everything she was saying was a complete fabrication, but she was delivering it with such conviction that I could see doubt creeping into the officer's expressions. The other pool-goers who had witnessed the actual events were already gone, having fled during Karen's initial outburst. It was essentially my word against hers, and she had a badge. "Officer, may I please explain what actually happened?" I managed to say, my voice sounding smaller than I intended. "In a moment, miss," Officer Martinez replied. "Ma'am, can you show us your official identification and any documentation regarding this investigation?" Karen handed over her credentials with a flourish. Officer Martinez examined them carefully, then handed them to his partner. They exchanged glances, and I could see them communicating something wordlessly. After what felt like an eternity, Officer Rodriguez handed the identification back to Karen. "Ma'am, we'll need to verify these credentials with the Department of Fair Housing. Can you provide us with a case number or the name of your supervising officer?" For the first time since pulling out her badge, Karen looked uncertain. "Well, you understand that ongoing investigations are highly confidential. I'm not authorized to share case-specific information with local law enforcement unless absolutely necessary." "We understand that," Officer Martinez said patiently. "But given the serious nature of these allegations, we do need to follow proper protocols. If you could just provide us with a contact number for verification." Karen's composure began to crack slightly. Well, my supervisor is currently in court testimony and won't be available until Monday. But I can assure you that my credentials are completely legitimate." It was then that Mrs. Chen, who had been quietly moving closer to our group, cleared her throat loudly. "Excuse me, officers, but I believe there's something you need to see." All eyes turned to the elderly woman who, despite her small stature, commanded attention with her authoritative tone. "I've been a resident here for 12 years, and I've watched Sarah work for the past 3 years. She is the most professional and fair person I've ever encountered. More importantly, I recorded this entire incident on my phone." Karen's face went completely white. That's illegal. You can't record people without their consent." "Actually, ma'am," Officer Rodriguez interjected. In a public area like this, there's no expectation of privacy. If Chen, Mrs. Lucy Chen, she supplied helpfully. If Mrs. Chen recorded the incident, that could be very helpful to our investigation. May we see the recording? Mrs. Chen nodded eagerly and began pulling up the video on her phone. I started recording when I heard the screaming. I thought it might be important evidence if something happened. As Mrs. Chen handed her phone to Officer Martinez, I could see Karen's mind racing, trying to figure out how to control this new development. The officer played the video, and even from several feet away, I could hear Karen's voice shrieking the profanities and threats she had hurled at me. The recording clearly showed her violently shaking the gate and her increasingly erratic behavior. "This is taken out of context," Karen protested desperately. "The recording doesn't show what happened before I was forced to raise my voice. She was discriminating against me from the very beginning." But Officer Martinez was no longer looking at Karen with the same respectful attention. His expression had shifted to something more skeptical and analytical. "Ma'am, I'm going to need to make a phone call to verify your credentials. Please wait here." As Officer Martinez stepped away to make his call, I found my voice again. "Officers, I want to be completely transparent about what happened. I have the complete pool access logs from today, security camera footage from the front gate, and our standard operating procedures manual. Everything I did was exactly by the book." Karen shot me a look of pure venom. "Those can all be falsified. You're just trying to cover up your discriminatory behavior." "Ma'am," Officer Rodriguez said firmly, "I need you to remain calm while we sort this out." From across the parking lot, Officer Martinez was walking back toward us with a very different expression than when he had left. His relaxed demeanor had been replaced by something much more serious and official. "Ma'am," he said, addressing Karen directly, "I've just spoken with the Department of Fair Housing. They have no record of any investigation at this location, and the badge number you provided doesn't exist in their system." The silence that followed was deafening. Karen's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water, but no sound came out. The game was up and everyone present knew it. "Furthermore," Officer Martinez continued, "impersonating a federal officer is a serious crime. I'm going to need you to hand over the fake credentials immediately." What happened next was perhaps the most shocking twist of all. Instead of the defiant rage I expected, Karen suddenly collapsed to her knees in the parking lot, her fake authority crumbling as she began sobbing uncontrollably. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean for it to go this far," she wailed. I just wanted to swim. My life is falling apart, and I thought if I could just have one normal afternoon at a nice pool, maybe I could pretend everything was okay." Through her tears, a completely different story began to emerge. Karen Mitchell wasn't a wealthy woman. Trying to flex her privilege, she was recently divorced, had lost her job 2 months ago, and was living in her car. She had been driving around looking for places where she could clean up and maybe get some relief from the heat when she saw our beautiful pool facility. "I used to live in a place like this," she sobbed. "Before my husband left me for his secretary, before I lost my job, before everything fell apart. I just wanted to feel normal again for one afternoon. When the gate wouldn't open, I panicked. I thought if I could just convince you that I belonged here." The fake badge and identification, she explained between sobs, were props she had bought online for a Halloween costume the previous year. In her desperation and panic, she had concocted the undercover investigator story as a last-ditch effort to avoid getting in trouble. "I know I messed up," she continued, her voice barely above a whisper. "I know I said terrible things and acted horribly. I haven't been myself since my world fell apart. I'm not making excuses. I know what I did was wrong." I stood there listening to this broken woman's confession, feeling a complex mix of emotions I hadn't expected. Anger at her behavior, certainly, but also an unexpected surge of compassion for someone who was clearly struggling with circumstances beyond her control. Mrs. Chen, who had been watching the entire scene unfold, stepped forward and placed a gentle hand on Karen's shoulder. Honey, why didn't you just ask for help? There are programs in this city for people in your situation. You don't have to live in your car. Officer Martinez looked at his partner, then at me. Miss, given these circumstances, how would you like to proceed? You certainly have grounds to press charges for the false impersonation and disturbing the peace. I looked down at Karen, still kneeling on the hot asphalt, her designer outfit now rumpled and stained with